Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
This may be offensive to some of you, but it is the truth. So here we go. A sign that was posted on the gate into an Iowa farm. Notice, this property is a farm. Farms have animals. Animals make funny sounds, smell bad, and have sex outdoors. Unless you can tolerate noise, odors, and outdoor sex, don't buy property next to my farm. I love it. It's the truth. Good morning. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America. Followed by a patriot with the Pledge of Allegiance. Call in. Good morning. And a good morning to you. And I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you, and of course some of our great advertisers, including Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Call them at 734-6969. Right now, without further ado, let's go to our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Well, good morning, sir.
Hi there, buddy. Are you going to do the pledge?
Of course, I'd love to this morning.
All right, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Well done, Wheels. Well done. Thank you. And right now it's time for the weather, and the weather's brought to you by Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox. And they are offering up to a $1,700 rebate on qualifying new Lennox home comfort systems. Oh, you better check it out today. Call Ramsey Heating and Electric at 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox, saving you money. Here's the weather.
Here is your weather as we saddle up and decide to ride again for the weekend. This is what we're looking at for today. Going to be a little bit on the breezy side, not too bad. Looks like partly cloudy skies for today. Expecting a high of 64, tonight low of 40. Tomorrow warming up, sunny skies, high of 70 with an overnight low of 44. Looks like sunny and 73 for Wednesday, overnight low of 46. Getting close to 80 for Thursday. Looks like highs are going to be in the upper 70s, lows in the low 50s. And then for Friday, unfortunately, got some rain showers moving in. Winds are going to be picking up in a high of 58. Enjoy today. That is your weather on Zeb at the Ranch.
Gina, thank you very much. And brought to you by Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox. Also, real quick, I want to remind you, too, about our dear friends at Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Spring cleaning. Yes, get all the curtains, the bed sheets, the covers, the coats, everything related to colder weather, and take it into Daryl's Cleaners and get it all cleaned up and ready for next year's colder weather. I'll tell you what, take it into Daryl's. They can help you. They always do. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. You stop in and see them today. I want to let you know that if all of a sudden you hear the microphone get turned off and music start to play, please do not be alarmed. I've been going through this coughing for about, my goodness, over 3.5 weeks, and it's kind of come to a head over the last couple of days, and so I think I'm on the downhill slide now. But if all of a sudden I start really coughing bad, please bear with me today. I'll do my best, I promise. And don't forget too that on Thursdays we have a new segment at 9:15 called "It's Time to Grow" with Tony McCammon, University of Idaho horticulturist. And interesting facts about growing, whether it's trees or bushes or your garden, whatever. Don't forget Tony McCammon, University of Idaho, on Thursdays at 9:15. Calls are welcome and appreciated at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Couple of items that I want to kind of clean up a little bit from last week. First of all, I made a prediction in the Kentucky Derby knowing I knew that horse was not going to win, but I picked him anyway, and that was the horse called Patch. And the horse that did win the Kentucky Derby on Saturday was Always Dreaming and really looked strong. And we'll see how it does in the next of the Triple Crown series. But Patch, if anybody watched the race out there, you know what I'm talking about. Came out probably blended into the pack, and there were two horses just ahead of him going in from the first turn into the backstretch. And it was at that juncture they formed a V, and they would not let that horse through. He could not get through. He tried sticking his nose right up there next to their saddles, and he could not get through. I'm not saying that the horse would have won. I'm not saying that he could have been maybe in the top three, but I am saying that may have been his goal opportunity to get towards the front of the pack. But Always Dreaming did win the Kentucky Derby, but Patch, way, way big underdog with only one eye, I thought did very, very well. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Yep, all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs, they've got it all for you. And all you need to do if you have questions is just give them a call. Excuse me, at 678-0459. And they're open 7:30 to 5 Monday through Friday, and they really have enjoyed serving you for over a half a century. Wow. A lot of nice people there with a lot of knowledge at Ramsey Heating and Electric in Burley, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. You can help me today by calling and sharing some of the load, so I don't have to do all the talking today. I'd appreciate that. Give me a call, 436-2244. And don't forget to Denny's Restaurant at 611 Overland and Burley, America's Diner. The food is fantastic. The people are great. My goodness, stop in. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It's great. And check out that brand new, they got a whole page of all these new burgers. Oh, you're going to love those new burgers. Got to have one. And, of course, breakfast reigns supreme all the time, anytime at Denny's Restaurant. 611 Overland and Burley, and another location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. Yep, it's America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant. You stop in and see them today. Another thing I wanted to mention is the healthcare issue, which absolutely you can't pick up a newspaper, you can't turn on the TV, you can't turn on the radio. That's one of the hot topics, if you will. And many, many people that I listened to over the weekend when I had a chance to kind of peruse the news, many people are stepping forward to say that Obamacare was not helping them, not covering them. It was fading fast, and the costs were escalating. Many people stepped forward. Private citizens were saying this over the weekend. And they said that they are looking forward, quote unquote, to the new health care plan. Well, the House, of course, has passed their version, and it now goes to the Senate. Now, there's been a lot of people saying that the senators are just sitting there with a pair of scissors and whiteout, and they're going to be cutting this and revamping that and rewriting that. And we'll see what happens to the final that comes out of the Senate from the original that came from the House of Representatives. Finally, in the news, I tried to stay awake. I tried to stay awake and watch my Cubs and support my Cubs. And I must say that my Chicago Cubs, last year's World Series champions, they're not doing so good this year. No, they're not. They just lost 3 in a row. 3 in a row to the New York Yankees. But last night, I couldn't stay a fan. I tried. Last night, I made it till about the end of the 8th inning, and it was tied. And I thought, I just can't do it. I got to get up early in the morning. So I turned it off and went to bed. I did not know that it was going to go 18 innings. Holy moly. 18 innings last night before finally the Yankees beat the Cubs 5-4. The Cubs are not playing well. The pitching's not doing well. The offense with the so-called best hitters in baseball, where are they? Not doing so good. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. Well, I'm waiting for you. Come on, you got to help me out this morning, please. Give me a call. We'll talk. It'll save my throat a little bit. Barry Equipment and Rental, with locations, 3 locations, one on South Lincoln in Jerome, another one on Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, and another big one at 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. They have all the equipment to get the job done right. They've got equipment rentals, they've got equipment sales, they've got those walker mowers. You can really mow like the pros do. And they've got those walker mowers, 0% interest for 48 months. You better check it out today at Barry Equipment and Rental. Jerome, Twin Falls, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Caller, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Sunshine.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
As Gina refers to you, I just think you're one of the boys.
I'm one of the what?
Just one of the boys.
Oh, one of the boys. Yeah, okay. Let's gather around the campfire. What do you got, Keith?
I am so disappointed in the way everything is going. It's such a tragedy that these Democrats now, one of the architects of Obamacare was on Fox Sunday yesterday, and they're trying to blame Trump for what Obama has done. And that guy told him on the carpet that you don't call a Democrat on the carpet.
No.
Because they're never wrong.
You know, Keith, I'm so glad that you brought this up. I just don't understand the mindset of the Democrats right now. And I've opened the door, and I've stood to hold the door for them to come on my program. I have invited some of the so-called hierarchy of the Democratic Party. I've invited some of the so-called underlings that are running for various positions, and nobody wants to come on. Nobody wants to discuss their platform. Nobody wants to come on and discuss Obamacare. Nobody wants to come on and discuss the differences in their mindset and conservative mindset. But yet they'll be the first ones to gripe. They'll be the first ones to curse, and I mean that. They will curse if they don't get their way.
That's true. But you know, one thing tragically is happening is Labrador is in real trouble, I think, because he's spoke in Coeur d'Alene, which is, as far north as we can get, and as far to the left as you can get.
Yeah, but wait a minute. What did he say wrong? What honestly did Labrador say wrong? I'll tell you right up front. He didn't say anything wrong.
No, but they were out to get him.
Yeah.
They, I was listening to something about the Bundy trial that's in Las Vegas now, I guess. But before that, I heard about somebody who was being charged for going across state lines and committing a crime. I think it was tied to the Bundys. But what about these people who are coming from everywhere for these protests?
Yeah, well, let's stay right on the avenue of Maine and 2nd and talk about the healthcare issue for a minute. I do not have his exact remarks right in front of me, but he basically said nobody has died because of a lack of healthcare. I think that's a generalization, but you still have the opportunity to get to the hospital, get to the emergency room, and be taken care of in this great country of America. And because a piece of paper might not cover this, that, or the other, there is still that advantage living in the United States. And quite frankly, I'm sick and tired of everybody finger-pointing on the left and saying now that Obamacare may be diminished and put out to pasture, all the conservatives, the Republicans, and everybody trying to rewrite the health care plan, they're even calling them racist right now.
Oh, it's just disgusting to listen to what they have to say. It doesn't make any sense to me. Obamacare was going to collapse under its own weight.
Yeah.
But yet this guy, who is one of the architects of Obamacare, who is on Sunday News, is sworn up and down it's Bush's fault.
Yeah.
They always try to blame somebody else for their stupidity or wrongdoing.
I appreciate your call. I want to ask you one quick question, and I want a short answer on this, Keith. When you hear a woman use 4-letter words in front of a speaking engagement or to the news, what are your thoughts about that woman as far as her class and her ability to say things without having to go to the gutter? What do you think about somebody that does that?
I think they're disrespectful and are disgusting. In the 55, 56 years that my wife has been married, I've never heard her utter that word, ever.
Well, it seems...
I hope that she never does. And anyone who does is just being disrespectful to whoever they're talking to.
I agree with you. And I'm going to tell you something, man. Now the women of the Democratic Party are picking up on a certain word and using it in their speeches against Donald Trump. And I'm going to tell the Democrats, anyone listening that's a Democrat this morning, if you have to resort to the gutter to explain yourselves or talk about certain subjects, you are less than... You're just less than what's laying out in my corral right now. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And quickly, I will say Elizabeth Warren is probably the architect of the filth. She has come out, and these Democrats are just lapping it up.
Yeah.
She's going to continue, and if she gets anywhere with this thing, this country's done for.
I agree with you. Keith, always good to hear from you. Thank you very much for your call. God bless you, man. Thanks.
Keep on keeping on.
Thanks. I listened to that speech by a Democratic female congressman, and it was laced with 4-letter words, none of which you will hear on this program. Believe me. And they're getting away with this to the point where they think it's acceptable. I listened to Tom Perez, the Democratic chairman. It was filthy. And they're getting away with this because they think it's acceptable. And you know who really is at fault here? Is the American public for not turning around and literally or figuratively slapping them in the face and telling them to clean up their act. Don't forget Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. The number to call, 678-1191. Now, they can and will help you get back to feeling like you. I know a lot of us, we go out and we start doing all this spring stuff, like getting the yards cleaned up and the garden ready, and you're doing all this fix up and paint up, and you're building new fence or whatever. Oh, all of a sudden you got some aches and pains, and man, you can't hardly straighten up. Well, maybe you're recovering from an accident. It doesn't make any difference. All you have to do is call that number at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, and they can help you get back to being you. Number to call, 678-1191. And be sure and call them today. They got the greatest physical therapists there at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 678-1191. Also, before I go into a coughing fit this morning, I just hate having a cough, don't you? It just really drives you nuts after a while. Ag Express is looking for drivers. Yes, they are. Full and part-time positions. Retired folks are welcome to apply. And Ag Express will work around your schedule, 2 or 3 days a week, whatever that works best for you. And you're home every night using new and maintained equipment, and they've got great vacation schedules and benefit programs. Whoa, baby, you better stop in or give them a call at Ag Express. Dale and Paul, 438-8886. Allen in Twin Falls, 731-2495, and Russ in Burley at 431-7175. Ag Express is looking for drivers. Ag Express is looking for you. Excuse me. I want to please have you give me a call. Don't you find it completely distasteful? Come on, ladies especially. Call me on this morning. That one Democrat that I heard over the weekend using expletives in her speech against Donald Trump. Oh, man. No class. And now they're calling people that are for a renovative new healthcare system and the elimination of Obamacare, they're calling them racist. Some of the Hollywood, these people are just really sick and perverted. Some of the Hollywood set are coming out and saying, well, you didn't like Obama because he was black. Aha! So now you're going to get rid of Obamacare. This is your way of showing your supremacy. This is your way of showing your white power. This is a way of showing that you are a racist. I've had enough of that term. And this sounds really calloused. And I know I'll take some heat for this statement. But after the Democrats here in the state of Idaho called me a racist because of my absolute disdain for Obama being elected back in 2007, leading up to the 8 elections, they called me a racist. And I will promise you that no one on the left will ever call me that again, ever, without severe ramifications. I'm very, very committed to that thought. They went out of their way to call me a racist, many of which are still in power in the Democratic Party and especially in Twin Falls. And at that same time, which I have all the radio tapes to back me up on this, I was advocating for Condoleezza Rice to hopefully throw her hat in the ring and run for the presidency. But no, the Democrats, the Obama supporters, former flunky sheriff's deputy and others from Twin Falls, absolutely they came out with the racism remark. And a good warning to those people, don't ever do that again. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Caller, I'll be right there. I want to remind everybody about Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. They are the only locally owned and independent hearing health care practice in southern Idaho. And if you're having trouble hearing, please, I urge you to call 312-0957. Across from the Minidoka Hospital Emergency Room, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Dr. Christine Pickup, and she can find the problem and help give solutions to the problem. I'll guarantee you, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, 312-0957. I've got some cookies I want to give away, but I'll take this caller first. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, you and I could have a coughing contest, but on the healthcare thing, is it racist what the black president did to me? Because I used to have insurance, and now I can't afford it.
Yeah.
A friend of mine had insurance. It was like $200 a month premium. His deductible was $2,000. Now he doesn't have insurance anymore because it was hitting $700 a month with a $10,000 deductible, and all of his medical wasn't being covered by his insurance in the first place. So, and we're white, so is that racist to us?
Well, yeah, what you're saying is 100% correct, but now I want to ask you a question before both of us have to cough. Are you following the news, especially in the last, let's say, month to 2 months, and noticing a trend? And the trend is from the Democrats, and the trend is from the blacks involved in the Democratic Party to start throwing around at their will and their whim that white people have white privilege and white power. Are you noticing a trend here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can. Yeah, they try to.
Well, they're being successful.
And the word racist is so, that's just like using the word "the" nowadays.
Yeah. After having that thrown at me like I did back in 2007, I'll guarantee you, my dear friend, nobody better do it to me ever again, especially to my face. I will not take that sleaze and that low gutter statement ever associated with me, and that's a warning. It's a pure warning to the left and Democrats. They better watch what they say.
Yeah, because how many times I've read a couple of stories where a black woman's child got in trouble at school or whatever, and she goes into the principal who happened to be white and just ranting and raving about, and you picked on my son because you're black, and he turns around his family portrait, and his wife is just as black as she is.
Yeah.
Children are, and just shut her right up.
Well, I tell you, I appreciate your call. I've got to give away some cookies, but I want to tell you now, I've tried all the cough drops in the world that are made, and none seem to work. But I wish you the best with your cough. It must be something that's going around because I've had this thing for about 3.5 weeks.
Mine's allergies. So.
Okay, well.
Okay, thank you. God bless.
Bless you, too. Thank you very much. I got to give away some cookies. I got to give away some cookies from Sophie's Chatterbox. My goodness, I'm running late. Anybody that's a first-time winner, answer the question. Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street, right on the square in Rupert. Oh, what a delicious restaurant. Oh, what a delicious bakery. And they can make those maple scones, too. They're fantastic. But right now we're going to talk about the cookies. And here's the question for today. It's not as easy as the past questions. What did actor Wilford Brimley, famous movie and TV star, do for a living before he was an actor? He's been in all the big movies, Cocoon and many other movies, had TV series. He was known as Mr. Quaker Oats on television and everything. What did actor Wilford Brimley, famous movie and TV star, do for a living before acting? Give me a call at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And come on, give me a call. That is not as easy a question this week. What did Wilford Brimley... I know Wilford really well. We've been friends for 40 years. And what did he do for a living before he became an actor. Okay? Quickly, give me a call at 436-2244. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir.
Was he a furrier?
Was he a what?
A furrier. Horseshoer.
No, you mean farrier.
Farrier.
Not a furrier. A furrier is with the mink business, but this, you're meant farrier, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know what, Dougie? Have you ever won the cookies before?
I haven't won cookies. I won the cinnamon rolls.
Well, that was a long time ago, though, right?
Pardon?
I said that was a long time ago, right?
Yeah, back when I was younger.
Yes, Wilford Brimley was a horseshoer. He was a farrier, not a furrier, please. And
over my eye tooth.
That's all right, but he was a horseshoer. As a matter of fact, he used to live down in Utah, where he still resides, and used to travel from the Lehigh area and do a lot of horses up at La Bois Racetrack.
Yeah, I seen him out in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I was driving that transit bus out there hauling the tourists around. And he is a very down-to-earth gentleman. I mean, I talked to him in fact, he rode a complete round. We was talking. I told him I was up from Idaho, and we was talking. Very, very nice man.
I had the honor when a very, very dear friend of mine died many, many, many years ago, Leroy Gibbs from Wendell. And both Wilford and myself were asked to do the eulogies for Leroy Gibbs. And we had been friends before that, but we've been friends ever since, too, so I've known him well over 40 years.
Oh, good, good.
But let's sit down, class, today and write out the difference between furrier and farrier. Hey, listen, this man that's on the phone with me is going in for surgery. We wish him well. Our prayers are with you, Doug Martin. God bless you.
Well, thank you, sir.
You're
I
welcome.
Appreciate it. Everything's going to come out all right. The Lord, I've been talking to him, and he's given me a few blessings already.
Well, you just put your faith in him, and I'll guarantee you'll be a grinning and answering questions for cookies in the future, too.
Yep.
All right, buddy. Thank
you.
you.
You got a minute, or
I am so late on some of my commercials, Doug. I appreciate it, but I got to scoot.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Thanks. Don't forget, oh my goodness, I got to get this in, Lennox and their home comfort systems. My goodness, yes, you be sure and check it out at Ramsey Heating and Electric. And along with Lennox, they're offering up to a $1,700 rebate on qualifying new Lennox home comfort systems. All you gotta do is call 678-0459. 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox, saving you money. There you go. Hey, by the way, I know somebody else that can save you money. Get rid of that cough. I'd feel a lot better, I'll tell you that. K&R Rental at 256 South 600 West of Hebron. They're open Monday through Friday, 7 to 5:30, Saturday, 7 to 2. And all the equipment, they got all the variety of tools and equipment from forklifts all the way down to lawnmowers. And they can deliver right to the site, too, your power tools and heavy equipment. I mean, these guys are good. K&R Rental in Hebron, 678-3122. They've been in business since 1979, serving you at K&R Rental. Caller, I'll take your call right now. I'm a good old boy. I can do it. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. Long time no talk.
Oh, my gosh. How have you been? I haven't talked to you for a minute and 23 seconds.
I know it. You're talking about that insurance today, the insurance plan they're pushing through.
Yeah.
And I heard an analogy from a guy this weekend that was very well stated. The pre-existing conditions, if you buy a car and drive it around and get into a wreck and go buy insurance on your automobile insurance, they won't cover that wreck.
Yeah.
That's like going buying a wrecked car and then buying insurance for it and then having an insurance company fix it up.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have a homeowner's insurance, you have a claim on it, what happens to your monthly premiums?
Out of sight, man.
And an automobile, you have a claim on it, they go up.
Yeah.
So why is it so unheard of for your insurance premiums to go up if you have a pre-existing condition.
Yeah, but wait a minute, Doug. When you get right to the basics, have you honestly heard of anybody getting in an accident or maybe having something as life-threatening being, now carefully answer this, being refused any care and basically the medical profession saying, oh, just lay down and die?
No.
That is my entire point.
And you don't have insurance of any sort, and they take you to an emergency room, you are going to get medical attention.
Human life is so valuable, and human life is so sacred, and helping and serving human life is such an appropriate Hippocratic oath and all of that with our American medicine system and across the world. I dare say that there are very few, if any, people that could be that calloused to say to an individual, sorry, go ahead and die.
Nope, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. But the problem with our rising medical costs is these big companies have bought these hospitals, and they are a for-profit company.
Yes.
And they have shareholders, and they're on the stock exchange, and if they don't produce a profit...
Yeah.
So, I mean, hello, people.
But the problem today is so multifaceted with the people on the left that they seem to be just crawling out of the gutter with different terminologies and their filthy speech. I mean filthy speech. And the attitude that if you're against Obamacare and it's high cost and it's lower care, then they're starting to throw the name now. You've heard them. You're a racist.
Exactly. Well, where were they when the veterans were standing in line and dying? They weren't saying a word.
Yeah.
They just let the Veterans Administration go on as it's been run.
Yeah.
They weren't standing up for them, but yet now they're screaming and hollering people are going to die.
I did hear something over the weekend, though, and I caught this after church on Sunday morning on one of the news programs. And I was channel surfing, and we're getting a little feedback here, Wheels, ride that gain a little bit. And I was channel surfing, and I happened to notice an interview with a lady, and she was very, very prominent Democrat for her state, and she made the comment that this is enough. This is enough. We've got to work together to make America a better country than what it has been for the last couple of years. That was the first Democrat I've heard with any common sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I caught a bit of that myself. The left has had it so long, for the last 8 years.
Yeah.
And I can understand the Democrats being mad, because they had free run the last 8 years, because the Republicans didn't stand up against the Obama or the other Democrats, and their policies are failing. That's why they're all mad.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Listen, man, I got to run and do a couple of commercials, but you have a great day.
That's a good oxymoron.
All right. Thank you, Dougie. See you later. Hey, don't forget Mother's Day right around the corner in the Goodie Shop at 133 West Main in Burley, 6470106. Remember that number, 6470106, and get a goodie basket for Mom. Or a special Mother's Day mug filled with kisses and brownies and treats. Oh, my. They do a fantabulous job for Mom and all the people at the Goodie Shop. And the number again, 6470106. Hey, the Drift Inn at 545 F Street in Rupert is saying you better make reservations for Mom and take her out to dinner on Sunday for Mother's Day. Prime rib, finger steak, shrimp, cordon bleu. It's good. And they're going to have special appetizers and salad bar. Oh, my goodness. Make Mom feel special at the Drift Inn in Rupert. Number to call, 436-1300. And the man I just talked to, Doug's Alternator and Starter Service, 635 21st Street in Hayburn, wants to wish all the mothers a very happy Mother's Day. I think that's really nice. Doug, of course, involved in all your alternator and starter work, and he is the best at what he does. But he really takes the time right now to wish moms a happy Mother's Day from Doug's Alternator and Starter Service. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to get into Texas Governor Greg Abbott, signing a bill that says Texas will not support sanctuary cities. And I say, hooray! Hooray! It's about time governors had the backbone to stand up and say, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to give extra rights and special money and special allowances to illegals in any city in Texas. And I hope this movement moves all across the board. And more of the Greg Abbotts have the guts to stand up and be counted. Time for the weather, and then I'll take some more of your phone calls. Riverview Urgent Care Center in Burley at 382 North Overland in Burley. Twin Falls Urgent Care at 2392 Addison Avenue East. And Jerome Urgent Care, 133 West Avenue A in Jerome. Minor emergencies, major care. The doctor will see you now, not in 4 or 5 days, but right now. No memberships required. Everybody welcome at the Urgent Cares. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Here is your weather as we saddle up and decide to ride again for the week, and this is what we're looking at for today. Going to be a little bit on the breezy side, not too bad. Looks like partly cloudy skies for today. Expecting a high of 64, tonight low of 40. Tomorrow, warming up, sunny skies, high of 70 with an overnight low of 44. Looks like sunny and 73 for Wednesday, overnight low of 46. Getting close to 80 for Thursday. Looks like highs are going to be in the upper 70s, lows in the low 50s. And then for Friday, unfortunately, got some rain showers moving in. Winds are going to be picking up in a high of 58. Enjoy today. That is your weather on Devitt Ranch.
I appreciate it. Riverview Urgent Care in Burley, Twin Falls Urgent Care, Twin Falls, and Jerome Urgent Care in Jerome. Say this to you. If you have a minor emergency, you'll get major care. The doctor will see you now, not in 4 or 5 days. You stop in and see them today. I just want to say this, as far as the bleeding heart liberals out there in the audience. If you want to read an outstanding article about sanctuary cities, it was written in Newsmax magazine by Ben Stein. Ben, of course, was the teacher in the Ferris Bueller movie, you know, Bueller, you know that guy. But he is a sharp cookie and a great economist. And he wrote a very interesting editorial in Newsmax magazine called Sanctuary Cities Spit on the Constitution. And he is 100% right. At the end of the article, he says, and I quote, "More to the point, we are not a nation if we do not have borders. And we are not a nation if we do not have laws. And when the Constitution is spat upon by the likes of Jerry Brown as governor of California, and hundreds and thousands of mayors, are we not in a state of rebellion and civil war? The guns have not started firing yet. I hope they never do. But this is not America any longer." You know, it's kind of like, and I'm going to be very blunt on this, Twin Falls City Council, and they've wasted so much time of serving their constituents and the patrons that live within that area, and basically tried to figure out, and I don't know why they spend so much time on this. Well, I have my own reasons, but I won't say it on the air. But they're trying to figure out whether to call it a welcoming or a neighborly city. Well, for heaven's sakes, wouldn't almost any city or any town want the nomer of being a neighborly or a welcoming city? Of course. But the gist of the problem is that I honestly believe this is one step into saying that they're a sanctuary city for the illegals, etc. This trying to figure out how to put the verbiage together for a welcoming or a neighborly city is a complete waste of time. And I think people should be up in arms about this and go to the city council meeting and just say, come on, for heaven's sakes, are you a bunch of clowns looking for a circus? Let's get down to the business of running the city and making it better. Not sitting there, well, are we a welcoming or a neighborly city? Oh, my goodness. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I would never watch it. I would never be a part of it as far as, saying anything about the MTV Awards, because I think it's disgusting and low class as to what they've done. Well, it must have been pretty disgusting, because Representative Maxine Waters was on the MTV Awards show last night. And it was nothing more than a slam against conservatism and President Trump. Absolutely pitiful. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Hi there.
I agree with everything that you say right now, because a sanctuary city has got to be defined. Because why are we giving sanctuary to people who are illegal? That encourages lawlessness. And so if the lawless people are welcomed into our cities, and then somebody that's an American gets into trouble for really doing something bad as well, then he probably should run right for a sanctuary city and get away with it. I don't want those people in my backyard.
Can you tell me one good reason? Now put your thinking cap on. Are you sitting down? I want you to sit down. I want you to take a deep breath, exhale, and give me one good reason why any city, San Francisco, Sacramento, Chicago, New York, etc., I don't care which one, should be known as a sanctuary city. Doesn't that just tell you that, we're going to lock the gates and put up the moat, and we're going to keep all the bad people inside of our city, and you can't touch them with the law because we want to give them sanctuary?
Or do they want a new bunch of employees that they can pay next to nothing, and the people will stay out of the courts and they'll stay underground so that they can pay these people nearly nothing and have a luxurious living?
Or, to use your terminology, are they pandering for more votes from the left that they feel they can garner by giving these people some credence?
Well, the other thing is, how quick are they trying to get them signed up to citizenship so that they can vote?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and, our farm hires people from Mexico. But they come here legally, and we make sure that they are aware of the rules and the regulations. And then when they're ready when the season is over, they go home legally. And they take their legal money with them, which is kind of America's foreign aid.
I agree with you. I absolutely, positively fall in lockstep with what you're saying. I am so bitter that Ben Stein's article, honestly, if you get a chance to read that. It's in Newsmax magazine, and he just goes in chapter and verse about how literally the left is trying to tear apart our fabric of the Constitution, and his last line, "This is not America any longer." Chris, he's 100% right.
He is. And who is going to scream the loudest when their rights are being trampled on?
Absolutely.
Those very people.
Well, I tell you what, we are, okay, I don't want to say this because I know it'll get taken out of context, but I think you'll agree with me. We are on the verge in this country of good versus evil, bad people wanting to take over and change the complexion of our society. And I honestly believe we are on the verge of another civil war. Quickly, your comment.
I think that there's real consequences, and I don't know if even the liberals are ready for what they're going to be facing.
I agree. Chris, always good to hear from you. God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
I'll tell you what, folks, I really want to say and give tribute this morning to our major sponsor. I had a nice chance to visit with Randy over at Tires West the other day. I happened to run into him. I haven't seen him for a long, long time. Well, I'll tell you what, you can get where you're going this summer. All you have to do is stop in and check out all the great tire buys at any or all of the 7 locations of your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. They've got a slogan called Doing the Right Thing Matters, and they do the right thing. They've got all the tires ready for you, whether it's for your car, your pickup, your SUV, all the different tread designs, all the different sizes. They've got it all. And they really can help match up the tires to your vehicle for your driving. I mean, if you're a really long-haul driver going all over, or maybe just around town, hey, check it out. All the tire buys at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Front-end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries. Boy, and don't forget, they have a phenomenal brake service. Really, really highly trained technicians. Stop in and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. The best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Got to take a little break. News next from CBS. My old buddy Wheels is over there at the main studio to play a little music. We'll be back in about 7 minutes. Oh, welcome back, Zeb at the Ranch. Oh, Mr. Cough right here. Every now and then I'll probably have to break loose and cough. I apologize for that. And with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
They really are loyal to the community and the people served. Western Waste Services, from porta potties, hand wash stations to trash receptacles and dumpsters, all of this and more at Western Waste Services. They are always at your disposal. Really nice people. At 734-6969, you give them a call today. Before we go any further, I'd just like to say thank you very much. Let's see what's going on. We're going to have George and I think Kelly Anthon on the air here in the next couple of days. On May 27th, the 3rd annual Idaho Roll Call Memorial Ride is going to get underway, and it's sponsored by the Rupert Veterans Memorial, the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, and the City of Rupert. Bikers will meet at Let's Ride in Rupert at 9:30 in the morning on the 27th, and this is a ride to support the fallen soldiers. And after the ride, everybody will meet at the Idaho Roll Call Monument at 7th and Scott in Rupert for the memorial program and food at 1 p.m. And for more information, contact my buddy George Mass at 650-0104. By the way, to our friends, and they really are our friends, at Ark Animal Hospital, at Dr. Bill, Dr. Liz, the whole crew, and they're located at 750 21st Street in Heyburn. They do have the warm hearts for the cold noses. Number to call, 678-1177. And very seriously, they have the vaccinations for that parvovirus. This is a highly contagious, deadly viral infection that can literally take the life away from your dogs and puppies. Please take your dogs in there for that vaccination for parvovirus. Call them at 678-1177. Ark Animal Hospital, 750 21st Street in Hayburn. Again, warm hearts for cold noses. Let's see, what else have I got here? Oh, I want to remind you, too, excuse me with the cough and the cold this morning, the Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center at 924 Christian Way in Rupert. Number to call for maybe the time to go over and tour the facility or find out more about living there for your family members. I mean, they really care. It's the only locally owned and operated assisted living facility in the Mini-Cassia area. And it's located at 924 Christian Way in Rupert. The number to call, 436-3200. And I urge you to give them a call today. They're small compared to some, but with a bigger heart than most. Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center, number to call, 436-3200. Really, really nice people. And one more. Whoa, Deanna, did you see that? I knocked everything over almost. Almost had a complete disaster with the water being tipped and everything else. I want to remind you, too, about our friends at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Hello, Joel Heward and his family and the staff. They are such nice people, so community-oriented, and you just feel good when you're around Joel, always with that smile on his face. Well, when there's the passing of a loved one, believe me, it's just such a tumultuous time, and they can help you and your family with all the arrangements. And remember, always with the highest ethical standards, with unquestioned integrity. So please contact Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. Number to call, 436-5636. I've got time for a couple calls. Give me a jingle on the landline. And we'd love to talk to you this morning before we go to the lovely Miss Vicki at our gardening program in just a moment. And let's see, this is coming up this week, the Rupert United Methodist Church annual Relay for Life yard sale. Speaking of the Relay for Life, where are you folks? Call me, please, because you were supposed to give me a call last week, and we need to start some work for you. So there you go. And this Rupert United Methodist Church annual Relay for Life yard sale will be held Saturday, May 13th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the 605 8th Street location. And all the proceeds of the sale will be donated to Relay for Life and Open Hearts Food Pantry. For more information, you can call the church at 436-3354. There you go. I think that about brings us up to speed on our public service announcements. And let's see, I got one other little item to remind you of, and that's Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox. Oh, yeah, you can get up to $1,700 in rebates on qualified new Lennox home comfort systems. And believe me, no matter what the weather's outside, it's going to be really perfect on the inside. You get a hold of Ramsey Heating and Electric today at 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox, saving you money. Whew. Let's see, what else have I got cooking here. We're in the middle of high school rodeo season, and they're all trying to make it to state, and then hopefully on to the national finals high school rodeo. And, of course, the collegiate national finals rodeo coming up this summer. My goodness sakes, a lot of rodeo action going on. And we'll kind of keep you informed as to how some of the top contestants are doing. And let's see, what else have I got here that needs to be said this morning before I go to the lovely Miss Vicki. I think we've got everything caught up. That'd be a first on this program. And if you have anything you want to add to it, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Later on this morning, at 10:30, we're going to be talking to Kyle Olson, and he is with eagnews.org. And as you may or may not know, The USDA says it's going to broaden now the school's flexibility on food over and above what it was like with Mama Obama's health legacy that she was trying to put into the schools. Kids were not eating the food. Kids were wasting and throwing away the food because, quite frankly, it just wasn't any good. And Kyle's going to come on the program. He's going to talk to us about that and how the changes are going to be implemented and what's going to be going on. So don't forget, that's coming up at 10:30 this morning, eagnews.org, with our friend Kyle Olson. So we'll look forward to that. Right now, we're going to skip across the river and through the woods and over to Miss Vicky's garden. Vicky's Country Garden we go. Good morning to the lovely Miss Vicky. How are you?
I'm just fine, Zeb. How are you doing this nice Monday morning?
You know what? I've had a cough for the last 3 weeks, and so all of a sudden, if I start hacking and coughing in your ear, I apologize.
Oh, well. We all have our issues, you know.
Yeah. I went by your business the other day. I was in a big hurry, or I would have stopped in. But I went by. Holy cow. Your parking lot was absolutely jam-packed.
We could really use a parking attendant if you'd like the job.
Do I have to wear a black suit with a white shirt and a towel over my left arm?
No.
Oh.
No, just a big stick.
Well, I walk on crutches. Does that qualify?
That'd work. You got to just reach out there and guide with it. Yeah.
What would you have me do as your parking lot attendant?
Oh, just keep people from backing over one another.
Oh my goodness, is this a common occurrence?
Sometimes, yes.
I see.
People that come in and they park at funny angles, and then they back out, and somebody's parked at a different angle, and we've had a few fender clips.
So what you're saying is somebody might be carrying some pansies, and they might end up going to the great flower upstairs.
It could happen. You never know. But like I say, everybody just has to be careful. But we kind of try to keep track of a few of them. So it all works out in the end.
You know, one of the biggest questions, and I bet you I've got, 10, 11 letters already this year in regards to growing a garden and how to plant and everything. I get the same question every year. How deep do you plant the seeds?
Well, it all depends on what you're planting. Carrots have to go in very, very shallow. If you plant carrots too deep, they will not come up. They're very fine, and they can't push through. So you plant them very, very shallow, have your dirt nice and moist, put your seeds in, just basically ruffle them in a little bit with your fingers, and some people will put a 2x4 over them to keep the moisture in till they come up.
Okay.
Those, of course, have to be planted deeper. They have to be at least a shovel depth down. Peas and beans are down about 1.5 to 2 inches. So, because they're a bigger seed and they can push out of there. The finer the seed, the shallower it has to go.
Okay. And are there, like, little instructions on the bag saying, don't dig 6 feet down in the dirt or whatever?
Well, on our packages, yes, it gives you about, as far as like a planting depth and things like that on most everything.
Okay.
You know, like I say, you basically kind of, rule of thumb is the finer the seed, the shallower it has to go because it's up. That can't push its way through. Peas, beans, corn, those are a bigger seed, so they can push up a little bit further. Spuds have to be down deep so they don't grow on top of the ground.
Oh, okay. And so is it kind of a good assumption that the bigger the seed, the deeper you go, and the smaller and the finer or whatever, just stick it underneath the top layer?
Yeah, just kind of take it down, not over about 1/4 of an inch on most of the seeds. Carrots are the ones that's probably the shallowest. Radishes will go ahead and push through. Some people plant their radishes and carrots together.
Oh.
So when they pull the radishes, they thin their carrots.
Oh, Okay. Now, I have another letter from a lady that said, and I'm going to have to paraphrase this, about a 3-paragraph letter. We just bought our place back in February. My husband and I want to plant a whole bunch, that's the term that she used, a whole bunch of pine trees and different hedges. Is it too late in the season, or is this the best time?
It's not too late yet. We've still, April and May is a good time for planting any of that type of stuff, pines and shrubs and things of that nature. They do better in the cooler times. It's best to get them in as soon as you can. You don't want it's harder on them when they're having to fight 90-degree weather. You have to fight the watering a lot more on them also at that point in time. So, but no, it's not too late at all. It's a good time to get stuff in. They still have plenty of time to get situated and rooted in before we hit those hot temperatures.
Now, I have a question on my own regarding trees and shrubs. When you're talking about pine trees, how fast or how much will they grow during a growing season?
Well, that kind of depends on their watering issues and the soil. If you've got good soil and it's good fertile soil and you give them plenty of water, you should be able to expect about a foot a year. 10 inches to a foot.
I see.
A year. If it's in the alkali soil where they're kind of struggling a little bit, you might only get 4 to 6 inches a year out of it.
Oh.
So you just they have to have a fair amount of water. They like a lot of water, and just basically good soil. And of course, it never hurts to give them a little dose of fertilizer. Like the root stimulator when you plant them, and then give them a little bit of a good basic overall fertilizer, for the summer months, and then going into the fall, give them another dose of some good phosphate to get some roots to taking off and growing. But in good soil, you'll get a good, easy 10 to 12 inches.
Now, let me ask you from my own education, if you're going to create a windbreak, what is the best kind of shrubbery and or trees to plant for the fastest growth?
Well, your best windbreak, of course, is your spruce trees, your evergreens, because they're there year round. They don't lose their needles, and they form a pretty solid barrier against wind and that. You can do lilacs. You can there's privets. There's all kinds of different things, different bushes that will grow faster than the pine trees. But you got to remember, they are deciduous. They lose their leaves during the winter time.
Right.
So you've just it'll slow the wind down, but you've got sticks sticking up.
Right.
Is basically where you're at on that.
Okay. Now, another lady wrote a letter, and she said that, blah, 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 they had moved up here to Magic Valley from Arizona. And I'm trying to read the whole thing. I got to admit, I had not read this letter prior to going on the air. What about slugs and snails in my garden? Are they as bad here as they are other places?
Well, they're not as bad here as they are in Oregon and Washington, where it's got a lot of humidity. But if you have a shady area that stays quite moist and that type of thing, yes, we do have slugs. They're not near as big as they are in Washington and Oregon, but we still have them. And they're going to be in if you have a lot of bark down, a lot of times you'll find them living in bark because it stays moist. They have to live in a wet, damp, moist area. Their body structure does not take heat. They don't. They're kind of that slimy body structure, and they have to have moisture to keep going.
I know a lot of politicians like that, Vicki.
Yes, there are. There certainly is that. And but slugs will live in a like on the north side of the house in a shady, wet area. That's right where you'll find them.
Okay. And really, is there some kind of a chemical or something, did you say, to use on them, or what is the best way to get rid of them?
There's slug and snail baits, or you can put diatomaceous earth down, which is one that just cuts them up as they crawl through it. But there are slug and snail baits that can go down that has a scent that'll draw them to that. The diatomaceous earth is the safest. It works very well on them. You just have to use it fairly often, but you have to do that with the slug and snail bait too. Some people bury they'll put little pie plates out with beer in it, and they'll crawl in that and die.
Wait a minute. Whoa, stop. Are you telling me that if you put a little Budweiser in a pan, it's going to kill them?
Yeah, they crawl in there, but they die happy.
I've never seen a snail with a big smile on its face.
Well, slugs and snails will crawl right into that beer. There's the proteins in that they go in. They'll crawl into it, and then they drown in the beer. So
it's just
that's what. And then you throw that pan out, and then you put the fresh beer down for the next night. Usually they attack at night because it's cooler.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like going to a snail nightclub.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Just, turn a disco light on and you got it.
I love it. Hey, you've got a brand new business. You could sell those little disco nightclubs for snails.
There you go. We'll have to design some little night lights out for the slug and snail party at night.
Why don't you get some of these? Why don't you get some of these little pie plates and wire them up to a small battery that plays a small tune, and the lights blink on and off, and there you go, Miss Vicky's Snail Nightclub.
There you go. We can have a whole new thing going here.
All right. I've got another letter, and holy smokes, this thing is 2 pages long, but the gist of the letter is Vicky talks a lot about gardening, but she doesn't talk a lot about growing flowers. What do we need to do at this time of the year to beautify our flowers?
Okay, flowers, depending on perennials and that, do not require as much fertilizer as annuals do. Your perennials are the ones that come back year after year, but a good basic fertilization in the spring will keep in, and you want a good phosphate, again, to get the flowers to bloom. And that'll take care of those. Annuals, if you're putting petunias, geraniums, that type of thing in planters and stuff, those require fertilization on a very regular basis, not just once a week or so. You need a long-acting fertilizer in your soil, and then come in and boost them with what we have a Fertilome product called Blooming and Rooting that will really make them keep blooming and blossoming like your hanging baskets and that. But you have to do it about 2 to 3 times a week.
Oh, okay.
They're heavy feeders. They require a lot of fertilizer.
All right. Now, Mother's Day is coming up this next Sunday. I'm going to give you plenty of time to tell everybody about what to get Mom for Mother's Day at Vicky's Country Gardens.
Well, we have all kinds of gifts. We have some very neat gifts in our gift shop that yard decor, yard art, that type of thing. Plus, of course, we have our hanging baskets. We still have some of those. We have some very cute planters that are done up, very pretty ones for just to set out on a patio or set out in the yard. And one of the best things that we have is that the moms really like are gift certificates, because then they can come in and pick out exactly what they want.
Okay. Now, so basically anything and everything is over there. And I also want you to comment a little bit. Last year, I remember on the program you said that if people will take a picture of their property and bring it into you, you can kind of help them with suggestions on creating a better-looking property. Is that correct?
Yes, we can. If I can get a visual of what I'm landscaping, it's a lot easier than having them just tell me, well, I've got a door here and a window here. I kind of need to get the sizing of the windows and things of that nature and a little bit of spacing. And then we can kind of take a look at it and come up with some ideas, give you some different ideas that you can kind of play with and decide which one you like.
Okay, you've got all the rock and everything else, right?
We got all the rock. We just got a new order of shrubs in. So, yeah, we're pretty well stocked on, and we got a bunch of new perennials coming in again. Still, we got one batch. We got more coming. All of the annuals are ready to go. So, I mean, yeah, we can help them with pretty much any of the stuff that they need. We got all the weed mat, the rock, the fertilizers, the plants, you name it, we got it.
Let me ask you this. If we do hit some warmer temperatures between now and next Monday, our next program, is it going to be stable enough to plant some of those warmer crops?
Oh, yeah, I think we're safe now. Hopefully. I mean, we can't wait much longer. Then you gotta hope for a real late fall.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now
I think we're pretty close now.
All right. Now, if everybody drives by Vicky's, maybe I can shake loose on Thursdays to come over and be the new parking lot attendant. Tell everybody exactly where you're located and what your hours are.
Okay, we are on the Burley Paul Highway, Address is 185 South, 600 West. You can't miss us if you're coming out of Burley and heading towards Paul. Greenhouses are sitting right there on the left-hand side of the road as you're going into Paul. And our hours are 9 to 6 Monday through Friday, 9 to 5-ish, probably later than that this Saturday. And then Sundays we are now open from noon to 4.
Wow. Vicky's Country Garden, celebrating 20 years in business. This lady has all the answers, and believe me, I'll have all the questions. God bless you, Vicky. Have a super, super week.
Thanks, Zeb. You guys too.
All right, thank you. Vicky's Country Garden at 185 South, 600 West of Paul. Number to call, 438-5663. Nice lady. I really like her. Before we have our guest, now I got to tell you, we had a real scurry, hurry-up program this morning, or I should say problem, trying to fill the 9:30 hour. I thought it was filled. We had 2 people. Not 1, not 2, but now we're going on our 3rd person that was going to be on this time slot for 9:30, and we had some cancellations. And my lovely bride, I got to thank her and also Wheels for helping me get everything solidified for our 9:30 guest, which will be coming up in just a moment. Don't forget Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Oh, my goodness sakes, yes, when you think about life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and more, they are the professionals and can help you. And they will help you. All you have to do is call for an appointment at 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. You give them a call and see them today, okay? By the way, I had a good visit the other day with the folks over at Let's Ride. My goodness, Galen did a good job being on the program with us. And they're located at 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. Man, I'll tell you what, they're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 4. They've got all the four-wheelers. They got all the side-by-sides. My goodness, go in that showroom floor and just stand there and go, who parked all this stuff in here? Holy mackerel. Well, they've got the fun right there for you. And don't forget, they got excellent accessory department and super service department at Let's Ride. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, where the fun is sold. Really, really nice people. Okay, now I'm going to be flying by the seat of my pants on this one because I just was handed this note not more than 5 minutes ago, and I'm going to check with Wheels over at our main studios. Wheels, do you have Mrs. Parker on the phone with us?
Yes, sir, I do.
I want to compliment you, Wheels. Good job helping me out, spur of the moment. I really appreciate it. And I believe we have Andrea Parker on the phone, and we're going to kind of play this from scratch and from the get-go. Good morning, Andrea. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on today.
Well, it is my pleasure. Now, Andrea, I'm going to ask you a lot of what might seem to be naive questions, kind of give the basics of why you're on the air and the problem. Many people have followed what was called a absolute fiasco as far as law enforcement was concerned at both Burns, Oregon and Bunkerville, Nevada. And your husband, I understand, has been one of the people that was jailed over those issues. Why don't you, from the very get-go, explain the story and what happened, and then we'll get into your husband's plight. So, Andrea Parker, would you go ahead and take the microphone, please?
Absolutely. My husband is Eric Parker. He's been labeled by the media as the Bundy Ranch Sniper, which is not true. But what happened is we live in Idaho. And back in April of 2014, we were working, just living up here like we always are, and some things started coming across on our Facebook. The first one that he showed me was a picture of a First Amendment area. And it had that orange construction barrier stuff and this big area in the middle of the desert with a First Amendment area sign. And I remember seeing that, and it was supposed to be my first weekend out. My daughter had just turned 2, and I was leaving her with her dad for the weekend, going out to some hot springs. And I remember seeing it and thinking, well, you can't really tell where that is. That's not in America. You know, we have freedoms and liberties. And I kind of, like, blew it off. And he kept watching on Facebook, and then he saw a couple other things. He saw a video of some BLM agents arresting a gentleman for being on the side of the road with an iPad taking pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching that. He brought it home and showed me. And I remember watching that and thinking, what in the world? You see these BLM agents, and I want to say there was like 10 of them surrounding this guy and beating him up while they're telling another person in a van that you've got to keep going. And the guy in the van keeps going, but that's my brother. What are you doing? And they're just beating him up. He doesn't have anything but an iPad, and they arrest him.
Well, now, I'm going to stop you, Andrea.
Outside of that First Amendment area.
Andrea, hold on just a second. Listen to me. Listen to me. Just a second. Let me back up just a little bit, and please allow me to be rude and interrupt you on occasion so the public and I also can kind of conjure in our minds what you're talking about. When you first saw this on Facebook, a First Amendment area, who had put this up and for what purpose?
Well, at that point, we didn't know. But the BLM had put it up in Bunkerville, Nevada, and it was an area for people to protest the rounding up of this farmer's cattle.
I see.
And, but in my eyes, we all have a First Amendment, and it's not in any area.
That's right.
That's one of our constitutional rights. And so, you know, when I first saw it, I thought, you know, that doesn't happen in America. You think of that happening in, like, Russia and China, and that doesn't happen in America. So I kind of blew that one off. Then we see the arrest and the pictures of this gentleman just beat up. And I was thinking, why are BLM agents making arrests? Like, wouldn't you think that local police and sheriffs would be the one making arrests, and that they wouldn't really be just bludgeoning this person for taking pictures on the side of the road?
Hey, Andrea, why were they... Just a minute. Let me interrupt you again.
This other video, I mean, it really brought it full circle for us. In this other video, they have a caravan of BLM agents with a dump truck. And these protesters were blocking, or trying to block the road and see in the dump truck, or protesting whatever these BLM agents were doing.
Right.
And so they're all standing there, and they're kind of getting in front of this truck and or up close to it. And I've got to say, you know, once again, like 15, 20 BLM agents with dogs, attack dogs. And you see them all in front of this truck, and they're having the attack dogs attack the protesters. And one of them, like, kicks at the dog to keep it away from him, and then he gets tased by 3 different BLM agents. And he's like, you know, all the protesters are standing there, he's pulling the tasers out, and I'm thinking, my goodness, what is going on here? Then you see an elderly lady, like a grandma, an aunt. And she's standing out there, and these are all just everyday people. They're not like the protesters that you see in Portland that are ruining things, the protesters you see all over the news nowadays. These are cowboys. These are children, women, grandmas, you know, regular everyday people. And you see a BLM agent grab this lady, this older lady, with one arm, grabs it underneath her arm and lifts her up off the ground and body slams her to the ground. And at this point, I'm upset. To me, she wasn't doing anything that would justify her being body slammed to the ground. And I remember seeing another video where they were calling for the police, for the paramedics to come, and they weren't coming. And I was thinking, what is going on down there? And then we start looking more into, you know, the First Amendment zone, and sure enough, the BLM had put this up to prevent the protesters from being anywhere near their operation.
Okay. Now, just a minute. Hang on just a second. Wheels, make sure she can hear me.
And
Wheels.
That's where you're supposed to protest.
All right, Wheels. Hold on just a second, Andrea. Let me interrupt you again. I know that we have a disconnect a little bit on my interruption and asking questions, so bear with me. When, and for the sake of time this morning, and I'm going to have you back on the program again, you can bet on that, but when did your husband get involved, or are we coming to that, to where he was labeled with the damaging statement, the Bundy Ranch sniper? Bring us to that point.
Okay. So at that point, I think we're at April 10th, maybe. He decides that he's going down to see what's going on. Him and two friends from Idaho, they jump in the truck and they drive down there. Now, I want to say it's probably 11, 12 hours from here. So they leave on the 11th, the morning of the 11th. They get down there the night of the 11th.
Okay.
They immediately get to the land, go to camp or whatever, and then get up the next morning, and the next morning the BLM had announced that they're ceasing operations. The sheriff came down, gave a speech, and they were all under the understanding that they were going to go watch the cows be released. The BLM were ceasing operations. They were removing their assets and getting out of town. So they're at the Bundy Ranch, and a bunch of people are there. Hundreds of people are there. And at that point, Cliven says, all right, we're going to go get our cattle back. We're going to go down to this wash. So they, with everyone else, they jump into vehicles. All the protesters were sharing vehicles, jumping in wherever they could, and they drive down the road to this wash. Now, my husband is at the wash at the parking area. Some people had gone down into the wash. He didn't know that because from the parking area, you can't really see it. It's all along the side of the road. There is BLM, Park Service, Metro Police, Highway Patrol, all there. And he was up on the road. He was actually helping conduct traffic because it had slowed down a lot
Right.
And then at that point, some lady comes up and says they're pointing weapons at the protesters down in the wash, and they need help down in the wash. They're pointing weapons at the protesters.
Okay, wait a minute. Stop. Andrea, again, I need...
The BLM are leaving, ceasing operations, and he doesn't understand. So he goes walking down the road. He doesn't even know what the wash is. He gets to this bridge, and you can see down into the wash, and you can see, and he says he couldn't really tell who they were. There were some that looked like BLM. There were some in full military garb, full tack gear, and there were some in plain clothes. And they were all down in the wash, pointing rifles at protesters and himself.
Okay, wait a minute. Stop. Andrea again. Andrea, Wheels, make sure she can hear me, Wheels.
Snipers.
Andrea, stop for just a minute, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Give me time to get in here a little bit. Number one, what precipitated the use of pointing weapons at anybody? What happened? What was said? What was done so that guns were drawn and aimed at anyone? What happened?
Well, at that point, we didn't know, and the protesters didn't know. But when we were in the courtroom, because we've already been through the first trial, we found out that the FBI had gone to the BLM and told them people from the domestic terrorist watch list were on their way to try to take over the cattle.
Oh my.
Now, all of these BLM and Park Service and everyone had stayed up all night. So all these people pointing guns had been up for over 24 hours. They'd worked their day shift and then went to go home for the night shift and told, nope, people from the domestic terrorist watch list are coming. They were made to stay up all night in fear of their lives that they were about to be attacked by domestic terrorists. And by, I want to say it was like 11, 12 o'clock the next day, they're still there, and then the protesters start to show up. This episode was further egged on by the sheriff coming and not telling them that's what was going on over at the wash at the impound site, and telling them instead that the BLM had released a statement that they were ceasing operations and leaving, which the BLM did do that. They released a statement on the 11th saying that they were ceasing operations and removing their assets.
Okay, wait a minute. Whoa. Andrea, wait a minute. Wait. Wheels, you've got to make sure she can hear me.
The BLM agents, the Park Service agents, started pointing their weapons at them.
Wait a minute. Andrea.
They were looking at them through the scope of their gun.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Justification of this.
Wait a minute.
They were looking for threats through the scope of their gun.
Andrea, I have to have an opportunity, and Wheels, you've got to turn me up so she can hear me in her headset for a moment, please. Andrea, stop for a moment, please. I cannot let you ramble, and I cannot give you a complete loose rein on this program. We have to ask some questions, so you've got to give me a break to come in here, okay? Number one, what about the sheriff? Why did he not do his job as the acting overseer of everything? If it's in his county, he has more power than any of the feds. Why did he not do his job?
We're not sure. It seems like maybe the BLM wasn't listening. One of the BLM officers said in court that he didn't believe the sheriff had authority over them.
Oh, really? The sheriff in a county is the lead jurisdiction as to what has to be done, what can't be done, or what will be done. So this sheriff absolutely dropped the ball. Is that correct?
Yes. I don't know all the underlying situation here. It sounded to me like the sheriff was trying to work peacefully with this, and that there was a bunch of different things, but yes, I do believe that the sheriff could have come and told the people they're over there in bunkers thinking that domestic terrorists are coming and don't go over there.
Okay, now I'm gonna ask you questions and give me short answers on this because I'm down to a commitment on time. And like I said, I'm very, very willing to have you back on the program because I know the Bundy family, I know the situation, I know what happened in Oregon, and I think this is about time that we started talking about this. Number one, let me ask you this: you kept relating to the phrase that domestic terrorists were in the area. Who in the world was a part of the domestic terror list? What are you talking about there?
Anyone, they're patriots, I guess, how you say it. Anyone militia-minded patriots. In fact, I believe now myself and my husband are on the domestic terrorist watch list now.
Okay, for what reason and what purpose are you put on that list? Why did they qualify you as a domestic terrorist? What had you done previously? What did you do to go on the list?
Me, myself, just talking about this situation, I believe, put me on the list. I am not sure if my husband was on the list prior to going to the Bundy Ranch or not. I think that his involvement in the Bundy Ranch put him on the list as well. I'm not sure how you get put on the domestic terrorist list, and it's kind of shocking.
Well, these people that were part of going down there and standing up for the Bundys and standing up for ranchers, they were treated, quite frankly, like garbage by the federal government as compared to what we're seeing at like UC Berkeley and other places, Portland, where they're burning and looting and destroying businesses, and many of those people never even talked to or reprimanded by the police, and yet you people are put on a domestic terror list? This is insane.
Well, they use the domestic terrorist watch list so that they can hold you in prison indefinitely and strip you of your rights. All of these guys have been in jail for over a year now. Our first group just got to go to the courtroom, and the verdict ended up being a mistrial. 2 people got guilties, and the rest of them got a mistrial, and we're going back again on June 26th.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you about your husband and the terminology, the Bundy Ranch sniper. Did your husband pull out a weapon? Did he fire the weapon at federal agents? How did he come up with that nomer, the Bundy Ranch sniper?
When the lady said that they were pointing weapons, he went down to the wash. He was standing on the bridge. Then they announced that they were authorized to use deadly force. He knew there were snipers up on the hill. He figured he was in the crosshairs and was going to get shot, so he got into the prone position on the bridge. He did not have a scope. He was so far away that he couldn't have done anything except for possibly provide cover fire for the women and children down in the wash to get out.
So now
he stayed in that position for a little while, and then when the BLM backed out, he got up. no violence happened that day.
Okay, so there was no violence, nobody was injured, and this whole thing was just basically, what was the reason the feds let this thing escalate to this point? I mean, I honestly, and a lot of my listening audience is probably wondering, what in the heck precipitated all of these people being arrested and possibly threatened with their lives? What did they do?
Well, after seeing everything inside the courtroom, and it's really opened our eyes to a lot more that was going on, it was definitely set up as a Waco or a Ruby Ridge situation. They wanted to take the Bundys out. It was over land, or over water rights, over things like that. It was not over the cattle or the grazing fees. They wanted these people removed, and they were upset because all the protesters came and they couldn't facilitate a Ruby Ridge or a Waco situation.
Okay, so what's the status with your family and your husband right now? He's in jail currently, I understand. And what's going on with your family? I mean, my goodness, times have really got to be tough for you, are they not?
Well, yeah, this winter, we all had a good or a tough winter up here with all the snow. And it was definitely a tough winter to go through without my husband. And, I've been keeping the house going as much as I can, trying to keep everything going. I left my children for the last couple months being down at the trial in Las Vegas. The trial ended with a mistrial and no charges for my husband, for Stephen Stewart or Scott Drexler, all from Idaho. Todd Engel from Boundary, Idaho, was found guilty of interstate travel in aid of extortion and obstruction of justice.
Oh, my.
And so now they're going to retry them. Now, Stephen Stewart was at 12-0 initially for acquittal. It came back at the end at 10-2 for acquittal. Same as Ricky Loveline, Scott Drexler, and Eric Parker had like a 7-5-8-4 for acquittal.
Right.
So they didn't even have half 4 guilty verdicts, and they're going to retry this again and waste our taxpayers' money and your money.
Let me ask you this, Andrea, real quick, and I've got to run in just a moment. When you talk about a mistrial and all the facts that were supposedly presented in the court case, what constitutes a mistrial? Who made the motion for a mistrial, and why did they receive it?
The judge declared it a mistrial because the jurors, it was a hung jury. So they couldn't come to an agreement on any of the charges for any of these guys. And they also couldn't come to an agreement on any of the conspiracy charges. They're all being charged with conspiracy.
Oh, my.
And they were arrested 2 years after the fact, so it's really kind of one of these situations where I don't see how anything that they're doing is lawful.
Well, what do you think? Now, I need you to make a short statement on this. Don't ramble on because I'm almost out of time, but then correlate what happened down in Bunkerville also to what then took place later in Burns, Oregon, if you could, please.
Well, what happened in Bunkerville, people were standing up for their neighbors. That's why Eric went to stand up for his neighbors and his constitutional rights. Same thing was going on in Oregon. They had a ranching family that was accused and sentenced for starting these backburn fires, and they served their time, got out, and then the federal government said, no, that wasn't enough time, you didn't serve your mandatory minimum, and was sending them back to prison. And so the Bundys came down, and they were, they're sick and tired of the federal government running off the ranchers for their land.
Absolutely.
And so they made a stand inside the refuge to bring awareness to the Hammonds case.
Let me ask you this last part of this, and then I'm going to have you back on the air, Andrea. You do a wonderful job of explaining, and I want to have more questions answered. But when you look at the idiots, and they are, in Portland, Chicago, New York, that are burning and destroying and absolutely trying to do everything they can to protest this new government administration of Donald Trump, and then you look at your husband and the others, how can you compare both groups when one group gets off scot-free for their actions and your husband's in jail?
And that's the funny part is the group that gets off scot-free damages property, costs all of us taxpayers money because it's all of our property. It's statues, it's all of these things, business windows, cars, and then you have all of our guys that were peaceful, that they brought their weapons because they were using their First Amendment followed by their Second Amendment and standing up to the government. And the government doesn't like that.
You know, I can only say this, I'm sure many people have mentioned this to you, that our thoughts and prayers go out to you and your family and your husband and everybody associated with this. But if you were to gaze into a crystal ball, what do you think is going to happen within the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe a year? Is your husband going to be exonerated of these charges?
Well, after seeing the jury come back, the judge prevented a lot of our evidence, only let us talk about the day of the 12th, and was harassing our witnesses, saying they're going to indict anyone who comes in to testify. But even with all of that, the jury still could not find them guilty. So I have a little bit of faith because we still have a system where the jury is the ones that make the final say.
Wow.
But it's scary when you're fighting against a system that is rigged. And I don't believe our judicial system works any longer.
Well, I am going to, if you will, I will call you after the program this morning. First of all, I want to thank you for coming on the air with me this morning. I apologize that we had a little delay there and you couldn't hear me interrupt with questions, but I want to have you come back in the future. Andrea Parker, God bless you and your family, and we wish you absolutely the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call her, and Wheels, we've got a lot of feedback on the line. We're going to have to address that, but she was having trouble hearing me, but we're going to have more about this Bundy situation and then more about the Burns, Oregon situation. I cannot, in my mind, fathom how you could possibly equate domestic terrorism with those people, those ranchers, and then look at domestic terrorists that are burning, looting, and destroying and throwing firebombs and Molotov cocktails in Portland, Chicago, New York, etc., and they get away with it, and just kind of a slap on the wrist, and then these people like this Eric Parker being held in jail for over a year away from his family. You can bet I'm going to do a lot more on this. Time for the weather, and the weather brought to you by Phillips Oaks Goodwin Crane Company. You better believe it. Phillips Oaks Goodwin Crane Company, CPAs that have been providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over a half a century. The best of tax return preparation, tax planning, bookkeeping services, financial statement preparation, all of this and so much more, with locations in Burley and Rupert. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Here is your weather as we saddle up and decide to ride again for the week, and this is what we're looking at for today. Going to be a little bit on the breezy side, not too bad. Looks like partly cloudy skies for today. Expecting a high of 64, tonight low of 40. Tomorrow, warming up, sunny skies, high of 70 with an overnight low of 44. Looks like sunny and 73 for Wednesday, overnight low of 46. Getting close to 80 for Thursday. Looks like highs are going to be in the upper 70s, lows in the low 50s. And then for Friday, unfortunately, got some rain showers moving in. Winds are going to be picking up in a high of 58. Enjoy today. That is your weather on Zebeth Ranch.
And for people that are starting a business, a partnership, or a corporation, or business owners wanting to hire more employees or change their business, whatever, please take the time to call and work with the best. Phillips Oaks Goodwin Crane Company, CPAs. As I said, they are very, very helpful to you, your business, and your family. And get a hold of them at 1710 Overland Avenue in Burley or 625th Street in Rupert. Phillips Oaks Goodwin Crane Company, serving you. Coming up next hour, we've got Dr. Herb London, president of the London Center for Policy Research, and we're going to be talking about North Korea and their thuggery. And then at 10:30 this morning, we've got Kyle Olson with EAGnews.org talking about the changes in schools with what the kids are going to eat under the new Trump administration. All of this and more coming up. Zeb at the Ranch, don't you go away. Oh, my goodness sakes, here we go, hour number 3, Zeb at the Ranch, and, of course, Zeb Bell, your host, me, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and, of course, some of our great advertisers, like Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service, 734-6969. We're going to have our guest with us in just a moment. First of all, Kelly's Bearing Supply with Zach and Brett and Alex, the whole crew. Their slogan says it all. You'll know where you're at when you get your bearings at Kelly's. That's right. They got all the bearings, chains, brackets, everything. Don't let your machine sit idle while you're waiting for a part to come in. Go to Kelly's Bearing Supply, 1407 East Main Street in Burley, 678-9398. Also, we talked earlier this morning about Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center. Really, really nice folks that would really encourage you to stop by and check out the facility, and absolutely with wonderful, wonderful people working there to serve you and your family that are interested in perhaps putting a family member there and having them live at Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center, 924 Christian Way in Rupert. Number to call anytime, 436-3200. And they do a lot to make sure that their residents are a part of the community events, whether it's the Wilson Theater Productions or OVAC or the Rupert 4th of July, many, many other items, and a great big backyard and barbecues during the summer, all of this and more at Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center, 436-3200. They're small compared to some, but with a bigger heart than most. Right now, let's go to the phone line, and I'm very honored to have this gentleman on my program. He is the president of the London Center for Policy Research and the author of a brand new book, one of which I'm going to go to the bookstore this afternoon and pick up. It's called Leading from Behind, the Obama Doctrine and the U.S. Retreat from International Affairs. Good morning, Dr. Herb London. How are you?
Well, I'm doing very well. Nice to hear your voice.
Well, it's nice to have you on the program, and I guess I'm going to start right off with this. How does a Bush League fat boy like Kim Jong-un, literally at this point, at this stage of the game, have the entire world looking at him and wondering what his next move is going to be?
Well, the answer is very obvious to you. This is an erratic personality with nuclear weapons. I mean, it's like giving a young person the keys to a car who doesn't know how to drive an automobile, but nonetheless is on the highway. What you have here is the irresponsibility of someone who has decided he's going to use nuclear weapons in order to engage in an extortion racket. And the extortion racket works. He talks about nuclear weapons, he engages in tests, and we provide food and fuel for the country. You may remember President Clinton said, we will prevent North Korea from having nuclear weapons when we provide food for the country. We did provide the food, but that didn't stop them from producing the nuclear weapons.
Are we back to the 50s with this Korean situation? Are we back to a North and South Korea war, or even worse, the possibility of a nuclear war with North Korea?
Well, we don't know. I mean, look, I don't want to arrive at a conclusion that this is war. There are a lot of options between conciliation and war. And one of them, of course, is to give serious consideration to the pressure that could be applied on North Korea. If we apply that pressure and we can neutralize the effect of President Kim, that would be, I think, go a long way toward eliminating this crisis. But keep in mind that the potential for crisis is very real. He has a submarine that could launch nuclear weapons. He is developing an ICBM that might, in a year or two, reach the west coast of the United States. So there is no doubt that there is an attempt to influence the course of world history through the use of the nuclear weapons, because there's nothing else in North Korea. He doesn't have products that the world wants, and he is in a very odd position where he is in a country that produces nothing, relies on China for its fuel and its food.
Dr. London, if you were to get inside of Kim Jong-un's head right now this morning, what in the world is in there that says he can come out of this thing unscathed and a better country if he starts a war of this magnitude? I mean, this is lunacy. Does he want to self-destruct? Does he want to kill all of his people? Really, what's in his head?
Well, you know what's in his head again, because look at his grandfather and his father. They both did exactly the same thing. They both engaged in this kind of saber-rattling, and the West responded. Trump is the first person to say, look, this is intolerable. We are not going down this path any longer. The threat is increasing and is very real, and we are not simply going to make payments in order to appease the North Koreans. That's one of the reasons why the president met with members of the Senate on both sides of the aisle to discuss this matter. He wanted to point out this is not a partisan issue. It's an issue that involves the national security of the United States.
When you wrote the book, Leading from Behind, what was it that you wanted the reader to come away with from your book? What were you trying to teach or preach to the readers?
I was trying to say that the attitude on the part of the Obama administration, that we should withdraw from world affairs, that the intervention of the United States never has a salutary effect, is misguided. The president in the past believed that the arc of history was moving in our direction, and as a consequence, it was not necessary for the United States to do anything more than observe. That's why the expression leading from behind was used by the president. His view was at some point nations will act responsibly and will fill that vacuum, a vacuum left by the retreat of the United States. Well, that is not the case, because vacuums very often are filled. In fact, there is no vacuum in nature, and there's no vacuum in international affairs. But it's not always filled by responsible people. It is very often filled by very unpleasant actors. And we've seen that with ISIS, and we've seen it with Al-Qaeda, and we've seen it with the Russians, and we've seen it with Iran. So there is no doubt, because the president wills this, doesn't mean that it's going to occur. Trump has inherited a very messy situation, because he realizes we cannot proceed along the lines of the last presidency. As a consequence, you've seen the firing of 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria. What the message there was is that the United States is to be taken very seriously. We are not going to allow Syria to use poison gas. The president in the past, Obama, said, we're going to delegate that responsibility to the Russians and see if they can address it. We refused to address it. So we had a red line, but the red line was drawn in invisible ink. And as a consequence, the United States has no influence, had no influence at the time in Russian behavior or the behavior of Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria.
Dr. London, let me ask you this question. Is this problem all to be attributed to the 8 years of the Obama administration, or was the laxity on foreign affairs and foreign involvement, does it go back through Bush, Clinton, etc.? Where really is the beginning of our absolute retreat nationwide and worldwide?
Well, you did not get a retreat with Clinton, who did deploy an aircraft carrier force in the Taiwan Straits when the Chinese were engaged in saber-rattling. You did not get a retreat after 9/11 when Bush invaded Afghanistan and then Iraq. You do have a departure from the foreign policy of his predecessors, with Obama engaging in apologia about the role that the United States has played in international affairs, and saying the United States can no longer be the so-called policeman of the world. Well, I agree with the proposition. We cannot be policemen of the world, but we are still leaders in the world, and it's important for the United States to provide the leadership that is necessary for other countries to defend themselves. What has happened during the 8 Obama years is that countries have lost confidence in the United States and the kind of role that we have provided in creating stabilization across the globe.
Let me ask you, from what you've seen of the appointments in the Trump administration and their viewpoint and how they're handling things, even though they were given a hot potato with everything around the world ready to blow up, what do you think so far of Donald Trump's administration?
Well, I think that on the national security front, with Jim Mattis and John Lakey and Tillerson and McMaster, you've got a first-rate team. Probably as good a national security team as this country has ever assembled. So I have enormous confidence in the people that Trump has put together on this front. I'm not going to talk about all of the cabinet appointments because I have some reservation about several. But on the national security front, I think he has a first-rate team.
Do you feel that the key to this whole situation, as far as maybe letting it de-escalate, is possibly more involvement with China?
Well, the Chinese have the most leverage because they provide the food and the fuel for the country. But it's also true Japan has leverage because Japan has Article 9 in the Constitution, which suggests they cannot have nuclear weapons. However, the Japanese are going to need a deterrent since a missile fired from Pyongyang to Fukuoka in Japan takes 11 minutes. What can you do in that 11 minutes except say the missiles are coming? So the Japanese are in a very awkward position. They remember Nagasaki and Hiroshima. That's why they have Article 9. However, they will not rely on the American nuclear umbrella. Not sure how the United States would respond if, in fact, a nuclear weapon were fired at Japan. And so the Japanese are looking for some modification. That discussion, forget about whether it happens or not, that discussion will alarm the Chinese and certainly alarm the North Koreans.
Do you, after your studies for your book, Leading from Behind, and you really looked into the Obama administration and Obama himself, do you, like I have had, a lot of animosity against Obama for his capitulation to the rest of the world? Do you bring that forth in the book?
Yes, the argument that I make is that the capitulation is based on the view that ultimately things simply straighten out. That there's a kind of Marxist dialectic in history, and that we don't have to worry about the inexorable forces in history because they'll all move in a certain kind of direction. Human intervention is really not necessary. If you believe that, then you accept the propositions that Obama accepted. We don't have to worry about the Russians. We don't have to worry about ISIS. We don't have to worry about Iran. All of that in time will take care of itself. I don't buy that line, but that's the president's proposition.
With all the hot spots that are going on around the globe, the Mideast, North Korea, and many other problems, is this administration capable in your eyes and in your study as a policy research person that they can handle this, or are we really on the verge of Armageddon to the point where the American public should be very, very afraid?
Well, no, look, I think there is always exaggerated claims. We're not at the point of Armageddon. The world is in chaos. That's true. There's a lot of disarray. That is undoubtedly true. But it's also true that people simply don't go to the edge of a cliff and jump off. By and large, I think that most people and want to engage in sensible action, or at least controllable action. I don't believe that the difference is conciliation or war and peace. Peace is never achievable. It's utopian. But stability is not utopian. We can have a far more stable world than we have now if we create the institutions that allow for that kind of stability. Let me give you one example. If nations have nuclear weapons, and the North Koreans are not going to give them up voluntarily, we ought to talk about protocols. How do you use those nuclear weapons? Where are they placed? What do we know about them? How can you conduct yourself in a manner that is sensible so that the nations of the world recognize you as a nuclear power, but a verifiable nuclear power? We did that with Pakistan, hardly a friend of the United States. We could certainly do it with North Korea, but the pressure has to be applied.
Let me ask you about the Iranians. Of all the things and items and people I've had on my program, I'm absolute in my thinking that Iran is the major focal point for the world's problems today and into the future. Do you agree or disagree with me?
I agree. I mean, it's not the only nation, but yes, it is undoubtedly going to be the focus of problems because it is the major state sponsor of terrorism.
What about the so-called treaty with Iran? I looked at that thing. I've studied that thing. I've had people on the air. That was, to me, one of the biggest jokes that has ever been perpetrated on the American public. Do you agree with that statement?
I agree entirely with that statement. I'd even put an exclamation point on it. I read the 159-page document twice. It is written in the subjunctive tense, meaning these are things that could happen. They might happen. But they never say they must happen. So as a consequence, even if you accept all of every dotted, every I that's dotted, every T that's crossed, you still find yourself in the position where you don't know whether, in fact, the Iranians have to live up to any obligation. They do not have an obligation. They did not sign the treaty. They did not accept the language in that treaty except to say it is all dubious. It is all possible, but not something that we have to adhere to. That's a very important dimension of this activity.
On every book author that's on my program, I always ask the same question at the end of the interview. When the reader goes to the store and buys your book, Leading from Behind, the Obama Doctrine and the U.S. Retreat from International Affairs, and they close the cover on the end of the book, what do you want the reader to take away and perhaps do after reading your book?
I want the reader to understand what is the pathway to some sort of stability in world affairs. How do you engage the world in a series of activities so that American interests are promoted, and as important, there's a kind of global stabilization that occurs. That is the point of all of this. It's not simply a question of challenging Obama and criticizing Obama, although obviously that's very much a part of my argument. But more importantly, it's a question of what is the pathway to the future.
Absolutely. Now, what about the book itself? Where can it be obtained?
It can be obtained through Amazon. It's available in bookstores as well, but Amazon is the easiest way to obtain it. And if you have any questions about it, your listeners can reach me at londoncenter.org.
I really appreciate Dr. Herb London, the author of Leading from Behind, the Obama Doctrine and the U.S. Retreat from International Affairs. Dr. London, thank you for coming on the program, and I'll get the book and I'll have you back. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. All the best to you.
Thank you, sir. Very interesting, and if you like to read about what's happened in the past that might have a big play in what's going to happen in the future, I urge you to get this book. I'm very fortunate to have had him on the program, Dr. Herb London, and he is the president of the London Center for Policy Research and the author of that new book, Leading from Behind, the Obama Doctrine and the U.S. Retreat from International Affairs. Thank you very much. Oh boy, we got to pay some bills here right now, and I want to remind you too, we're very blessed on this program to have a segment that we've had for many, many years. It's called School Days in Cassia County, and it's on Thursdays. Excuse me for that cough. And it's on Thursdays at 10:10, and I want to thank the lovely Debbie Critchfield for all of her help in getting that program put together every week, and also our sponsors. First of all, we thank A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley, and they've got all the spring dresses there, and you can save 20%. And they've got all the baby gifts. They've got all the baby furniture. They've got everything at A Child's World. And gift wrapping is free. Stop in and see them today. Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley. Also, our thanks go out to the Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue East in Burley. And, of course, life-saving colonoscopies. And, of course, surgeries for cataracts and glaucoma surgery. I'm telling you, this is the place for your outpatient surgeries, and they can save you lots of money. Call the number 677-8888. That number again, 677-8888. Ambulatory Surgery Center in Burley, along with A Child's World, bringing you School Days in Cassia County. I apologize for the cough. I said that earlier this morning. I've had this thing for about 3 weeks, and I'm hoping I can get rid of it. And I'm going to have to reach way back into the medicine chest over the next couple of days and see what I can do to curtail it. And calls are welcome. I've got time. I got about 6 minutes left in this segment. I could take your calls, and I'd love to hear your calls about anything that we've discussed so far for this morning, and or perhaps another topic that you'd like to bring up. So give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. While I'm waiting for your call, I'm going to tell you that Ag Express is looking for drivers. Absolutely. What a great place to work, too. They've got new and maintained equipment, and they've got great vacation schedules and benefit programs, including major medical, dental, and vision. And they're looking for you. And even retired folks are encouraged to apply because they'll work around your schedule 2 or 3 days a week, whatever works best for you. Ag Express. Call Dale and Paul at 438-8886, Allen in Twin Falls at 731-2495, and Russ in Burley at 431-7175. Ag Express is looking for drivers. Ag Express is looking for you. You stop in or give them a call today. Good morning, caller. I appreciate your call, saving me from talking. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'll save you from talking. I think that we can reach a conclusion right now about what some of these things mean out there, is that we're giving a signal to our allies or our enemies, either one, that there is a new sheriff in town, but we need to be a little more obvious about his feelings about how things are. And I think that Trump is he's pretty adamant about America first, but sometimes he comes across a little cloudy, maybe. But I think that we finally have a president who thinks that the United States is a great place to be.
You know, I'm going to ask you something, Chris, and I've asked this on previous programs. What is wrong? What is wrong with putting America first? What is wrong with being very proud of being an American? What is wrong with always saying, I look up to the red, white, and blue and our great Constitution, and I'm proud to be an American? The left in our own country denigrates those things and poo-poos it that we're trying to be better than anybody else. No, I call it pride in country and pride in the past and pride in our future. And that's something the left seems to have forgotten about.
Well, when America is not proud of itself, the rest of the world takes advantage of us. When we hold our heads high and stand for the right things, the rest of the world takes note. And I think that if the United States is assured and confident and fair, we can change things. But if the rest of the world doesn't know where we stand, then they get a little antsy and they start meddling with other people's affairs.
Well, you know, and I want you to address this. There was a lady that called earlier this morning, and her and I were talking about this a little bit. And it's about all of a sudden now the left is using white privilege or white power or white supremacy. And it seems like they're trying to stir up kind of a race war or anti-Caucasian deal in this country. What are your thoughts about this? To me, it's sickening.
I would like to look at the color of the skin on the face of those people saying that. When do you not be proud of who you are?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you're better than anybody.
I do not.
I'm glad about what I'm doing, and I'm glad about my standards, and you don't have to live like me if you don't want to, but I'm glad about what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I don't care if they have Black History Month. I don't care if they have Black Awareness Month. I don't care if they have brown, purple, whatever. All I'm saying is that I will never stand for the denigration of the Caucasian race and let these liberals, and they're doing it every day, come out and absolutely denounce and denigrate and say that because I'm white, I've got privilege, and because I'm white, I'm demanding that I am better than everybody else. You've never heard me say that on this program. You've never heard Hannity or anybody else say that. I'm sick and tired of being lumped together and thrown into the gutter with the liberal left.
Do you know, we are all brothers and sisters created by the same Creator. The Creator made choices about what we had on our outer body because of, part of it is where we were born into the world. The Caucasian skin does not do really good in some other parts of the world. The black skin does not do really well in some other parts of the world. But because we are becoming so homogenous, the idiots don't understand that.
Amen. Good way to wrap it up. Chris, you're always welcome. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. God bless you. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Zeb at the Ranch. Don't go away.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, thank you very much, and welcome back to our last 30 minutes. And, of course, I want to say thank you again to Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox. They're offering up to $1,700 in rebates on qualifying new Lennox home comfort systems. All you have to do is call Ramsey Heating and Electric at 678-0459 and find out how Ramsey and Lennox can save you money. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line, and I consider this to be one of my favorite guests on this program, and he knows all about education and what's being done across the board of the United States with educational policies. And we say good morning to Kyle Olson with EAGnews.org. Good morning, Kyle. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
You know, I read a lot of different newspapers, and one of the most liberal has to be the USA Today. And last week they had an article in there about a 4-column story about the demise of Michelle Obama's health legacy for school children and what they eat. And they had a quote in there by Marion Nestle, New York University nutrition professor. And I want to start off by mentioning this to you and get your response. She said, quote, "It's pretty depressing to watch what's happening to the gains in food and nutrition policy." How would you respond to that now that the Trump administration has taken over?
Well, what the Trump administration is doing is they're returning power back to parents and local communities, because ultimately parents and local communities know what's best for their kids and not Michelle Obama or professors or bureaucrats sitting in Washington, D.C. And because I have yet to talk to a school food personnel person or lunch lady or anybody else that wants to intentionally give kids unhealthy food. Nobody wants to do that. But the reason that the Trump administration took this action was because, as you and I have talked about before, there have been scores and hundreds and thousands of schools and students and school personnel who have been complaining about these rules that were created by Michelle Obama and the Democrats and the Agriculture Department that were too restrictive, that were unreasonable, and all of those things. And so that's why the Trump administration took the action that they did.
You know, you and I both have talked about this in the past, Kyle, of the misuse and the wastage of the food. The kids didn't like the menus. I'm not talking about just here in Idaho. I'm not talking about just in Michigan. I'm not talking about maybe someplace in Louisiana. Across the board, the kids didn't like the food. They were throwing it in the garbage, and those programs were wasting millions upon millions of dollars. And now maybe common sense will make for better menus.
I think so, and that's the hope anyway. I mean, yeah, there was example after example and story after story across the country. I mean, one of the latest ones we wrote about was that in Alabama, kids couldn't have grits as a part of their meal because they were offering whole grain grits, but kids didn't want to eat the whole grain grits. They wanted the ones the kind that they were used to.
Right.
And because they weren't whole grain, they weren't allowed, and so those are the sorts of examples that will be rolled back. And I think it's clear to point out this is not a full repeal. The Obama administration and the Congress, nobody has been talking about a full repeal. What they're talking about is easing some of the restrictions, stopping some of the further restrictions that were scheduled to be implemented, and give local school districts and local schools some flexibility in what they're feeding students.
You know, for the naysayers out there, Kyle, let me ask you this. What really are they going to change? What are they going to leave the same? What is it going to open the doors to? I know they've had rules set on fat, sugar, and sodium limits, etc. What will be or not be the changes?
Well, I think it's important to point out that basically the way that the federal government forced these changes was that they changed the way that schools could be reimbursed in the National School Lunch Program. And so if you, as a school, were not complying with what the federal government wanted, you would not get the money. And so what they're saying now is, well, you won't have to comply with the whole grain requirements, with some of the sodium requirements, some of the further restrictions when it came to sodium. You won't have to comply with those in order to still get the federal funds. And so that will give school districts a little more flexibility when it comes to whole grains versus, say, white bread, or giving some kids a little more flavor in the form of salt and sodium, those sorts of things. The idea is to give a little more flexibility, so a school is serving a lunch or a meal that a student wants to eat, as opposed to not eating anything and then going and binging on Doritos and other definitely unhealthy things.
Yeah, the critics of the Trump administration and the reversal of this legacy, if you will, from Michelle Obama. I mean, some of the verbiage has been it borders on insane. Some of these people, like Ken Cook, president of the Environmental Working Group, said, oh, well, this president, he would rather have Big Macs and French fries and KFC in all the schools. He never said that. Trump never advocated that. Why does the left always have to go to the extreme?
Well, because that's how they get attention, but that's also how they scare people. But see, the thing is, if a school wants to keep the standards that they had with the restricted sodium and keep the whole grain standards and all that, they are more than welcome to do that. They're absolutely free to do that. No one is saying you cannot have these standards. But what has been happening across the country is a lot of schools have been saying, we can't live under these standards because they're too restrictive, and we're seeing huge amounts of waste, and kids aren't buying the lunches, and on and on and on. And all the Trump administration is saying is that if you want to keep those standards, you can do that. If you want some more flexibility, you're welcome to that as well.
Isn't the key to having a successful student one that can go to the lunchroom at midday, enjoy the meal, go back to the classes refreshed and his mind is clear, instead of having starving, hungry students that are just thinking of nothing more than a Snickers bar at 3:15 because they didn't eat lunch? I mean, the common sense is if they're going to eat, they're going to be a lot healthier and better students.
That makes sense to me, and I know it makes sense to you, and that's why I can't figure out, unless Michelle Obama and the bureaucrats in the Agriculture Department were so focused on their ideology and what they thought was best, because we would talk to when we wrote extensively about the problems with the program, we would talk to school food personnel and other people like that who have a lot of knowledge when it comes to this. And they would say those standards are not based in science. I mean, these are ideologically driven standards. And why don't we have science-based standards that show that a growing football player should be able to consume significantly more calories than a kindergartner? But the problem was the standards were not designed that way. It was this one-size-fits-all standard. It didn't take gender. It didn't take physical activity. It didn't take any of those sorts of things into account. It was just this one-size-fits-all policy that didn't work.
Absolutely. Kyle, let me shift gears a little bit with you on educational policies and problems right now. And this last week, I was sickened to see a takeover of the administrative offices at UC Santa Cruz, and certain black students were demanding, after they had taken over the administration office, some of the most ridiculous demands, one of which was, we want the leadership of the college to paint certain buildings different colors because we don't like it, and we're going to hold everybody in abeyance until we get the painting done. This is insane that we're letting students run the facility.
That's right. And they also demanded mandatory in-person diversity training for all incoming students. Who is going to decide what is that training? My guess is it's probably going to be made up of the students who were the ones protesting. But to me, it just sets such a terrible precedent because, I mean, these are hostage tactics where they commandeered the building. They refused to leave. Of course, the administration just rolled over and would not forcibly remove them from the building. And then they had this ridiculous list of demands where they wanted additional staff and they wanted deans and they wanted all these people hired and all these demands. And they refused to leave until the demands were met. And then the administration just rolls over and agrees to everything. And what the signal that sends is that, well, if you want these sorts of demands, then you can do that too. And that is, to me, it is just the state of higher education in a nutshell.
Well, yeah, but wait a minute. Whatever happened to common sense? I mean, if you're going to spend $35,000 to $50,000 a year to go to a major university or whatever for tuition, a place where you can learn and hopefully learn about your future career, etc., and then you let these kooks and crackpots come in there and just disrupt your education and everybody else's. I mean, what happened in this country that we let the lunatics take over the asylum? What happened?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. The left was very methodical in taking over higher education, the media, and Hollywood as a way to transform America, and that's what we're seeing take place. And that's how they're shifting America to the left, and all of those sorts of things. But I don't know why these sorts of stories take place, because this is not. I mean, are there problems on campuses apart from these sorts of stories? Absolutely. Are there things that can be improved? Absolutely. But to see these sorts of demands, I mean, this is not. How can we work better together? I mean, these are militant sort of demands, and they said that they were not negotiable.
Yeah.
They were not going to compromise, and it was very much a hostage-like situation. And for whatever reason, a university administration gives in, and they roll over, and they agree to all the demands.
I'm sure you've studied this, Kyle, because you're way ahead of most people on knowing all about what's going on with education issues. But when I looked at the situation at UC Berkeley with Ann Coulter being revoked from a contract because, in the long run, the college used a flimsy, lame excuse, we got to be concerned about the safety of our students. But on the other hand, a Muslim terrorist advocate, a woman that absolutely believes in terrorism and Sharia law, is going to be speaking the commencement address at New York University downtown. That's okay. I mean, this is complete idiocy what's going on in this country.
Right. That's right. And again, it gets to that's the state of higher education in a nutshell. And UC Berkeley was willing to tolerate these quote-unquote anti-fascist communist revolutionaries. I mean, that's really what they are. If you look at the history and you look at their roots, they're willing to placate those types of people and not defend conservative people or anybody who wants to go see Ann Coulter peacefully. They're willing to just roll over and give in to the anti-fascist groups and cancel that sort of speech. Because, see, the left understands that the way to get your way is to threaten violence, and is to intimidate, and is to threaten, and for whatever reason, these universities are just rolling over and complying.
Okay, rolling over and complying, like University of California, Santa Cruz, etc. What in the world, how can they roll over and comply when the law is being broken, when property is being damaged, when there's threats to people's health, when they stand up and they try to rush the stage and beat up a speaker? I mean, my goodness, isn't it time to break out the billy clubs and say the enough is enough?
I would think so, but see, they'll blame the Ann Coulters of the world for inciting it and for triggering the students to lash out and be violent. I mean, that's That's the craziness that's going on. And so that's why I think it's a moment for students and parents to say, is going to a university, is that really in my best interest? And do I need that? Do I need that sort of indoctrination? And do I need that sort of experience to be successful?
Yeah.
And I think more and more parents and students are coming to the conclusion that spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, going into debt, being, lectured to about white privilege and everything else, that's not going to do anything to help me in the real world. And so I should figure something else out.
Kyle, are you seeing back in Michigan and that part of the country, are you seeing a reevaluation of students that really have their head on straight? They want to go to college or they want to go to a trade school to adopt the learning for maybe a career. Are you seeing more of an attitude like, wait a minute, why should I go as a liberal arts student when maybe I know that in my own community, plumbers and electricians are making 4 or 5 times what I could make graduating in college in this certain course? Do you see the trade schools becoming more acceptable?
For sure, and I think that will improve with President Trump because for the last many years, the lecture from the Obama administration and I think liberals generally is that everyone needs to go to college.
Yeah.
One, that's not true, but two, they have a vested interest in everyone going to college because that means, basically. Job security for professors who are their base. But that being said, there are other alternatives coming up. I was just looking. There's a nonprofit called Praxis, Praxis, and it's essentially like a sort of like a variation of a trade school where a student who's out of high school will go for a few months of education. I think it's primarily online. And then they are placed with a startup business, and it could be video production, it could be those sorts of businesses, and the students learn the skill, they learn the trade in the startup business, and then the goal is that they will then have a job as the company grows, and so those, I think, as those options continue to grow and others are created, I think more people will look at the higher education model and say, what am I getting for my money, and how is what I'm learning about white privilege and cisgendered, normative, all the craziness, how is that actually going to benefit me either in the workplace or when I'm starting a business or whatever the case may be.
Let me ask you one final question. I'm already a little over, but I'll take an extra minute here quick. When you have a chance to interview or ask questions of some of these millennials that are basically sitting on a street corner holding a Molotov cocktail or waiting to strike a match and burn something or throw a rock and break something, do they ever look ahead 10, 15, 20 years as to what they should or might be doing to really sit and say to themselves, oh my goodness, I don't have any plans for the future, or don't they even care?
No, I don't know, and I don't want to paint all millennials with the same brush.
Right.
But I think the people who you just described, who are out agitating and are causing trouble and are violent and destructive and everything else, no, I don't think they see no value in America. They were not taught the history of America, so they don't understand it, and they believe that they're owed something, and they believe that someone owes them something, whether it's the government or it's the evil capitalist Donald Trump, or whatever the case may be. How do you re-educate those people or educate them in the first place? I'm not sure the answer to that, but I do think that there are a lot of good, hardworking millennials, and those are the people that need to be held up.
Amen.
And the people who are not that way and are out being destructive, they need to be held accountable.
Absolutely. Kyle Olson, EAGnews.org, the best. Thanks, Kyle. God bless you. We appreciate it, and I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I really enjoy having him on. He's a straight shooter. Kyle Olson, thank you very much. Hey, time for the weather. Past time for the weather. Brought to you by Scarro's Meats. Don Scarrow and the rest of the crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. Hey, number to call.
They just had a warning on.
Oh, is it back yet? Or not back, huh? Let me know. Wheels, are we back? And
we are, sir.
All right, we're back on. We just did the warning take place during the last? I don't even know where it happened. I didn't hear it.
It just happened a few seconds ago.
Okay.
I believe that I just heard it over in hot or cat, but yes.
All right. Well, we're back on the air and quickly get the weather forecast in here for the second time. Scarro's Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. You've got to try their delicious breakfast sausage and the bratwurst and all the bacon. Oh, it's fantastic. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Here is your weather as we saddle up and decide to ride again for the week, and this is what we're looking at for today. Going to be a little bit on the breezy side, not too bad. Looks like partly cloudy skies for today. Expecting a high of 64, tonight low 40. Tomorrow warming up, sunny skies, high of 70 with an overnight low of 44. Looks like sunny and 73 for Wednesday, overnight low of 46. Getting close to 80 for Thursday. Looks like highs are going to be in the upper 70s, lows in the low 50s. And then for Friday, unfortunately, got some rain showers moving in. Winds are going to be picking up in a high of 58. Enjoy today. That is your weather on Zebeth Ranch.
Oh, I'd love to have a weekend where it was living up to expectations. Maybe a sunny and 75 or something. Yesterday started off ugly, I'll tell you. Anyway, thank you, Gina, for the weather. Brought to you by Scarro's Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. I want to say about our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. If you're going to be going anywhere, maybe you better check your tires. And the best place to go check your tires is right there at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you. And they've got the best of tires for your pickups and your SUVs and your cars. And you know what? You can ask about a free pre-trip safety check, too. They'll give you a visual inspection on your tires and your wheel alignment for tire wear, front end components, brake components, shocks and struts, batteries, etc. They really care about your driving safety. And don't forget the very best in brake service and front end alignments and shocks and struts and batteries, and of course, all your tires. At your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and my buddy Randy on Overland in Burley. The best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Holy cow, have we got a full plate tomorrow. It's going to be exciting, including Dr. History will be here at 10:06. And we urge you to tune in tomorrow morning at 8:06. We'll saddle the horse and ride for 3 hours. Hope I can get rid of this cough. And always remember this. The way things were are the way things ought to be. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.